if you have children, you will completely relate to what I'm going to tell you right now. And if you're not, you just take a little bit of imagination and you'll know what I'm talking about. And imagine that you have your son and you're visiting a dangerous city. This city is full of criminals, full of gangs, and there's maybe like some cannibalism going on in the city. And then all of a sudden you find that you can't find your son. You search from everywhere, you can't find your son at all. And then you're like very troubled, very disturbed. And then about a day or a couple of days later, somebody taps your shoulder and say, "Hey, is this your son?" Imagine how happy you will be when you see your son after you lost him. So I think this guy will be like the greatest guy ever to you. He'll be like your hero. So different people have different opinion why God called John the Baptist the greatest among those born among women. But if you look at the message that the angel is talking about right here, what heaven sees John the Baptist is a guy who returned people back to God. After 400 years of miserable, no prophets, everybody is distracted away from God. He returns people back to God. And this is why God says, "Hey, this is my boy. This is how I like great men. This is what defines a great man to me, is a man who brings my children back to me after they're lost." Like, if you define a great love, a great life is a life where you bring back to God his children. I remember one of the words that really struck a nerve with me is like one time when we were in a servants meeting and Uncle George Mitri was talking about like service and preaching and stuff, and he said, "I'm yet to see the first person who came to the church and said, I want to be Christian, I want to have a relationship with God, I want to be baptized. I'm yet to see the first person to come to the church and say that, because yesterday he lost a debate over whether there is God or there is no God." If we're going to change the word, it's not by sermons, it's not by talking, it's by the way we act. I don't know if I should say that, but every time like Abuna asked me to talk, or Tante Marcelo or Uncle Hani asked me to talk, I always like struggle to get the message, what I really want to say, and then once I get the message, like the talk happens like very spontaneously. But this time, this message is very deep and it's very clear in my mind. But I really pray that God will like give me the wisdom to like choose the appropriate words, because this message is very deep and it's very changing. I've shared this message with a lot of people so far, and I've got nothing but positive feedback. Everybody, we even spoke about it in middle school. I actually spoke about this message with a doctor, and then she told me, like that night when she knew about this, she saved somebody's life because of this, what I'm going to tell you right now. Literally, saved somebody's life. So this stuff, and I use this stuff to like resolve conflicts, like 2-3 months conflicts that like I was able to resolve it in a minute because of this stuff that I'm going to talk to you right now. So, what is this message? The message is the way we deal with people, the way we see people defines the whole experience that we're going to have with them and whether or not we're going to witness to God with them. And there are two ways that we see people. The first way is that we see them as objects. And we try to manipulate them to do things for us. Even though there is a human being, we see him as an object, as an it, just like any other it. Just like a chair, a car, just like any other it. And there is an end in our mind before we start the interaction. And we try to manipulate the person in front of us in order to reach this end. Obviously, we're not telling him that he is an it, but we actually are dealing with him as an it. So we deal with people out of practicality, out of necessity, but we don't really engage in a mutual relationship with this person. It's a one-way door. It's not a two-way door. And this relationship is usually happening in the past. It is governed by things that we know already about this person before we talk to him, or by a pattern that we use to talk to everybody. So it's governed by the past. It does not happen in the present. And when we do this, we are partially engaged with people. So we're seeing people as objects, we try to manipulate them, governed by the past, and we try to get them to do what we want them to do in the light of what we know already about them. And it happens because we have to talk to people. And this end that we have in our mind does not necessarily have to be, Dad, I want you to get me an Xbox, or I want you to do this object to me. Because most of the time, this end that we have in our mind is something we called I must be seen as. I must be seen as a smart guy. This is why I'm talking to you this way, because I must be seen as a smart guy, or I must be seen as a righteous person, or I must be seen as a cool guy, or I must be seen as better than you, or I want to have something to be fulfilled. I'm only talking to you because there is a goal in my mind other than the experience that I'm trying to build with you. This is one way to talk to people. People hate to be seen as objects. It hurts. It hurts more than punching the face. Soft tissues and bone heal fast. But being seen as an object is very, very painful. People don't like this. And you will never show God to somebody as long as you're seeing him as a person. You will never be in a true relationship with somebody as long as you're seeing him as a person, as an object, either to fulfill something, an end you have in our mind, or a feeling that you want to feel at the end of the conversation. In this way of dealing with people, we don't acknowledge their deep humanity. We're just seeing them as useless thing that I'm using right now, and in a little bit he's going to be like, I'm not going to be using him anymore because I'm going to be using another person or another object. It hurts. We never show God to people this way. And now, compare this to the other way of seeing people. So we said that there's always two people, and I'm going to tell you right now very easily how you can find if you're using the first way or the other way. The second way we see people is recognize their full humanity. We see them as equal, we see them as a mutual, reciprocal relationship, and there is no end in our mind. The end in our conversation is infinity. We're not like just using the person to fulfill something that we have in our mind. The end is infinity. And this to everybody, like we are only interested in the experience that is going to happen, the unpredicted, very important word, the unpredicted product of our relationship with the person. So we can't tell before we start the relationship what the end is going to be. It's unpredicted. It's something that's going to happen based on what I put in and what he puts in. We see him as equal. And in this, we are completely present to the person. We are fully engaged with the person. We're not partially engaged. We're fully engaged with the person. We give him all of our humanity, and we're engaged with his full humanity. So full humanity with full humanity. Fully engaged. And it happens in the here and now, not in the there and then. It happens in the here and now. While we're talking to the person, the relationship is happening. And this is the only way we can change people. This is the only way we can bring people back to God. More importantly, this is the only way we can live a true life. This is the most simple, precious right of our birth. This is how we should live life. All the moments of genuine life happens when we see people, not as objects. There's a philosopher, his name is Martin Buber, and he said, if you continue to live seeing people as an it, you will live a life where you were an it. You actually did not live an actual life, because actual lives happens in an unpredicted, spontaneous interaction with people. It happens between people, not when people are on our side, when actually people are present with us and we're present for them. It is very basically respecting the humanity of the other person and dealing with him based on this respect. I always struggle with like the concept of like pride and being humble, and it's like always like, how do I like be humble and how I lower myself? And if you look at pride, look, this is how I thought about it. When I have pride, I am here, person is right here, I'm looking at him from here. So the only solution for this is to cut this part, cut my pride, lower myself. and try to like convince yourself that you're low. And then I heard something from C.S. Lewis. He said, being humble is not you enter in a room and convince yourself that you're the lowest person in the room. Being humble is entering in a room and not even worry about where you rank in the room. So instead of like looking at pride as like I'm here and the person is right here, why not instead of doing this, just do this. Raise the other person, raise him up where you are both in the same level. Regarding how this person looks, regarding how different he is, regarding how like he lives a high life or low life, he's like different with you in like political concepts and religious concepts, even sexual orientation, even like half tattoos all the way up to his neck. You respect him as a full person. You're not giving him as a pass as a completely righteous person, but you are respecting him. There is no rank, there is no scoring system going on him. You see him as an equal person. And this is the only way you can live life. And if we are going to make any influence on people, this is the only way we can make influence on people, because people refuse to be seen as objects. People refuse. I was talking to a high school girl, and I was saying, do you remember when somebody like give you a yellow smile or a cold hug or said, how are you, full stop, not how are you, question mark, not really caring about how you answer, how are you? You say, yeah, it happened before, and it happened so many times. So I don't care how many times it happened. How did it feel when it happens? It really hurted. It does hurt when we do not respect the full humanity of the person in front of us. But we're not going to change people until we see them as humans. We're not going to be a John Baptist of this age until we see them as human. If you think you're here and the other person is here and you have an end in your mind, this is the relationship I was going to be. This is how the relationship is going to be. If you think you're here and there is no end in your mind and you're only interested in an experience in the relationship, it's a parallel line. Guess who is at the end of the parallel line? Who's the end of infinity? Parallel lines only meet in infinity, right? Who's the infinity? It's God. This is the way we can actually see God. There is a reason why there's a lot of prayers in liturgy. I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the only thing that was concerning me during liturgy is seeing how the liturgy have a very noble goal of uniting us before we enter communion. Like in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes right now, we'll be praying the prayer of reconciliation, and then even after God is among us, after the bread becomes Christ, and this is the moment where like Christ is with us, and now we can ask for whatever we want. Abuna will say, make us worthy to be one soul and one body. God wants us to be one soul and one body. If you read John 17, God was like the last prayer, the last wish that God is having for us is that we all be united, just as the Father and the Son. We have the same love that the Father and the Son have. I remember like one of the history books was saying about St. John, the evangelist, when he was like, I think he lived to be like 100 years old, and when he was like very, very, very old, and he was not able to talk, they used to carry him, go in the middle of the street, and he used to say one word, my sons and my daughter love each other. Like the whole thing is about love. There's nothing else has any meaning but love. If you think that you are going to know God without this concept of loving people and seeing them as equal, you're in a complete self-deception. Even when God talked about the Samaritan guy, and he was saying the Good Samaritan and the Pharisee, that God did not care about like how he goes to church and how he knows God and how he does like the rituals. God cared about the love, seeing him as an object or seeing him as a human being. And I kind of like imagine the moments when God changed people, like the Samaritan woman, when God changed the leper. I think the moment when they changed and when he touched them, when he saw them as a human being in a non-judgmental way, when he didn't see the sin in them, he actually saw them as full human being. He was interested in them as humans, not as objects. And if we're trying to show God to people, and we are judging them, What kind of God are we showing them? We're showing them the judging God. And this is not what's going to return them. What's going to make them return is the loving God, not the judging God. You know, like John the Baptist was the light of the world of his day and age. We are required to be the light of the world of our day and age. So when you try to light up a bulb, would you try it in the middle of the sun or in a dark room? It has no meaning in the middle of the sun. We don't need to be a light of the word to the people around us in the church who are also the light of the word. We should be the light of the word in the middle of the word. To the people who are with us in the classroom, to the people who are with us at work, to the people we see every day. And the only way we can change them is that we see them as humans, or we're interested in their deep humanity. And it's not like lighting up the lamp in a dark room, it's opening the window. And then God will come on his own. Do not be an obstruction to the window. And the way we can be an obstruction to the window is when we judge people and we see them as objects. And we deal with them in a manipulating way in order to fulfill an end in our mind, whether this end is something that we need from them, or a feeling that we want to get, that we're righteous at the end, or a feeling that we're better than them. All while we're doing this, we're blocking the window. Once we get away from the window, God will come. This whole concept of being present and seeing somebody as an object or seeing him as a human applies not only to our relationship with people, but it applies to our relationship with the nature around us and even our relationship with God. For instance, the way we read the Bible, we can deal with the Word of God as an object. We just want to read the Word of God because we want to fulfill a meaning that's not the actual relationship and the actual interest of the Word of God, or because we want to be in a relationship with God. And it's a reciprocal way, it's a two-way street. We take from the Word and God's showing us something. God is doing something, it's a mutual relationship. And we don't know what the end is going to be. I think 3 weeks ago, we were in a middle school, and then we were talking about how we read the Word of God. And then we did the why method from when Abuna Dawood was here and was teaching us the why method. And I was saying, we chose the prodigal son, and I was saying, I'm sure that God is going to show us something today that we didn't have in our mind. Because there are three ways to read the Bible. The first way is I want to read the Bible because I want to go to bed. Because I can't go to bed until I finish reading the Bible. The second way, I read the prodigal son and I know already. I read it in the past. I know before reading the prodigal son, this is the prodigal son. I know what's going to happen. It's a story. I'm going to finish and go to bed. The third way to read it is that we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what God is going to tell me right now. It's not an object anymore. It's a mutual, it's a reciprocal thing. And I told him I'm sure that God would show us something that we never thought about anymore. And we read about 4 or 5 verses, and we got about 40 questions. And every one of them was a genuine new concept, a new idea. We were thinking about how God was thinking. Even the second verse was saying, and he has 2 sons. And the question, why did he have 2 sons? Why did not God make the whole story about 1 son? Because God is not interested in his relationship with us. God is interested in our relationship to people around us who are sinners. So it's a completely different meaning when we deal with Bible, when we deal with prayer. Like the prayer where we objectify God in a way that he's just a mean to get us good things or prevent bad things from happening to us. It's a prayer, but it's not like the actual prayer, the actual relationship where it's a mutual thing. We're in a relationship. I'm praying and I don't know what's going to happen at the end. I don't know what God's going to tell me. It's a completely different concept. Well, I really pray that I'm not using any inappropriate words because the worst thing that can happen is like the devil will come and will say, you're not really praying deeply, then probably you should not pray at all. Which is like just to tell him forget about it. This is not at all. Every time we're praying, we are praying. I'm talking about taking it to a deeper level, but we actually are praying. Because the devil can say, okay, you just read the Bible. Do you really remember anything about what you read? You did not, you were not in a relationship. We were just using the Bible. Maybe you shouldn't read next time. Which is completely wrong. Okay? I'm talking about like taking it to a deeper level. And this is also this is also the way we are we deal with everything in our life, with our jobs, with our work, with our like are we at jobs just looking at the watch, just thinking about how we leave, what day I'm going to get my paycheck, or we actually are using job in a way that we can use to glorify God, and we can have an actual relationship and help people and show God to the people around us. Same thing with teaching and grades. Are we just studying to get our grades or to show the teacher something, or are we actually studying because we want to learn something that we can use to change people around us and bring people to the Word? This is a concept that can apply for everything, even to food. I read a book called I Can Make You Thin. And this book talks about a concept in eating, and it's talking about like a special kind of diet where your diet is actually you eat everything you enjoy. It's like you don't like count calories, you don't see if this is healthy or not healthy. As long as you enjoy it, you eat it. But you have to be in the present point while you're eating. You have to be actually enjoying the food, enjoying the texture, showing the flavors. And he's saying if you enjoy every bite you eat, you'll be eating so much less. You eat it very slowly and you enjoy it, you'll be eating so much less. And it's like living in the present, not in the past with people. And this is the only way we can show God to people. The good thing about those two things is we always have a choice. Regardless of what happens around us, we always have a choice on how we see people. There was a book about a guy, his name is Viktor Frankl. And this guy was like a philosopher, a psychiatrist. He lived in the concentration camps with like the Nazis and was captured by Hitler, and he lived like a very miserable life. Like he used to like take them in a very cold atmosphere, get them all naked and have them build railroads and like give them only like half piece of bread and half a cup of soup the whole day. This is the only thing they can eat the whole day. They lived in a very miserable situation. And they were like debating, like there were two schools. Should I eat the half piece of bread that I'm gonna have the whole day all at once, or should I save it till later? And like it's like very bad. And he found that the last of the human freedoms, the last freedom that no one can take from us, people can take our house, our car, our clothing, our job, everything can be taken from us. But the last of the human freedom, the one thing that can never be taken from us is our choice of how our attitude should be towards people around us. And he said when he changed his attitude to the people around him, even when like the soldiers were like, even like one like cup of soup, they would not stir it, so they get the beans from down there. They would only give them the water. He was able to see them differently, and he was able to not judge those people. And this is the only thing that was giving him comfort. And once he got in this situation, he lived a completely different life because he saw them as people. Unfortunately, the increasing industrial and technological way of living we have right now has made us more and more objectify each other and look at whole life as object. So we don't live in the present anymore. And this is good and bad. And the good thing about it is that people out there are very tired of being seen as objects. By the media, by marketing, like now there's like marketing to 2 years old, to 3 years old. Everybody's being seen as objects by the media, by the company, and by people around them. So if we go to the Word and we provide a new concept that people are really hungry for, of seeing them as humans, of being only interested in the experience of a human with a human, being fully engaged, being in the present, showing something they've never seen before, we can be a witness to God in that situation. I'm done with the Word, but I really wish and hope that we will get out of here and really think of everybody, including the girl you're paying to the cashier at Walmart. It's a completely different experience. If you see, even in like the very mundane person you're only gonna see once, if you see him as object or as a human being, when there is no end in your mind other than the experience that is going to happen in a prison. And really pray that we will challenge ourselves and see people, everybody, in every situation, as an actual human being. It's completely different. And especially when there's conflict. When there is conflict and we start to see the person in front of us as a human being, it's a completely different experience. It's a different way of life. And I'm sure that this stuff works because everybody I shared this stuff with give me nothing but positive feedback, and it has solved so many problems for me. And I really think that, wish that we will just give it a try. Everybody, regardless of how he looks, regardless of what we know about him, just see him as a human being, as a human being that we don't want anything from him other than the actual experience. And glory be to God forever, amen.